Okay, again, welcome everyone to the Friday meeting. So it's just really a very simple suggestion, which is just that this is already everything. It is already whole, complete. There's nothing missing. There's nothing. There's nothing extra. Nothing to find. This needs nothing to be added to this in order for this to just be naturally whole and complete, which it is already. And so because this is already everything as being whole and complete, then of course there's nothing to get, there's nothing to learn, there's nothing to understand from this. There's nothing actually that even needs to happen, because this is all there is as that wholeness and as that completeness. So there's no possibility of an additional happening. There's no possibility of an additional awakening or an additional liberation or an additional enlightenment that could possibly happen to make this more whole than it is already, because it is already absolutely whole. It's just all of it. It's all here, and it's also all not here. And the reason I say that is because actually this, contrary to the experience for the person, this isn't a real appearance. It's just an apparent appearance. Say a real appearance. This has no reality at all, only as an appearance. It's empty and full, or empty fullness. So it's just what seemingly is. So we can't say that even that this is what is. It's what apparently is, or it's what is and isn't, because it just doesn't have the reality, the real experience of space and time, of movement, of this going somewhere, or of this being about something as a movement, as a reality. All of those things that are just described only seem to appear to an illusion. And the illusion is that there is someone in this experiencing this as a reality, as a fixed reality, as a movement. And that's what we might call the individual or the me. So there is a sense for the human being, there is this sense of an individual which arises, and as soon as that sense to be an individual arises within the wholeness, the completeness, the naturalness that this is already, it rises within this, and it seems to have the effect of making this seem somehow incomplete or somehow unfulfilled. And the reason for that is because the individual experiences itself as living in this separate world. The separate world for the individual is I am here, I am something here, and this is everything else. So there's me and there is everything else. And that's the apparent separation. And that feels somehow dissatisfying for the individual, because it just sort of feels like it isn't quite present enough, or it isn't quite aware enough or conscious enough. So it imagines that the solution to this sense of being separate, of being cut off from everything else, it imagines that the solution to that is to try and become more, to try and become something greater, to become more present, to become more aware, to become more conscious, to be just to move in this direction of more. So it tries to add more to itself, more experience, so that it can try and in some way overcome this sense to be separate. And the suggestion in this meeting is that all of that goes on reinforcing the delusion or the idea that by having it continues to reinforce the illusion that that separation can be overcome by having more and having more experiences. And all that does is it just keeps on reinforcing this sense of a separate identity or this sense of a separate individual. But that whole thing is the dream. That whole thing is an illusion. The individual is the illusion. The whole idea or sense that there is a person, an individual who is separate, who is living in this separate reality, who needs to find something, who needs to become more. The whole thing is dreamt. It's a complete dream, because actually the wholeness, the simplicity, the ordinariness that this is never lost, even if it's appearing as this separate individual who feels it needs to find something in order to make this into the wholeness, or in order to become one with everything. Even if it's just appearing as that illusion, that's the wholeness too. So there's absolutely nothing to be done in that sense, because the individual isn't real. Seeking doesn't get the individual anywhere, because this is the wholeness already. So in that sense, there's nothing to be done. There's nothing even to be gotten from this or from this conversation. Nothing needs to happen. This is a conversation about the need, about the end of the need for something to happen, because wholeness doesn't need something to happen to you in order for wholeness to be the wholeness that it is already. That whole thing is a complete dream. So what you long for is already. It is this. And a question in the comments. Hi, Neil. Is there nothing outside of this? Is there only what can be sensed with the five senses, and nothing outside of the five senses exists right now? So this is all there is. Everything that is appearing to happen and being interpreted by the senses, that is all there is. The suggestion is there is no one interpreting or using the senses, or there is no one who is using the senses to have an experience of what apparently happens. The sense that there is this sort of additional sense that there is something experiencing with the five senses is the illusion. There's just this is it. This is all there is. And there can't be anything outside of this, because there is no separation. So there can't be anything, there isn't anything apart from this. There isn't actually anything that's outside of this. That seems to be the experience for the individual, is that I am somehow not fully a part of this and not fully a part of what's going on, which is why it will which is why it loves to do things like sort of techniques which are going to make it feel more present and feel more a part of what's happening, or it likes to engage in experiences that makes it feel more connected, because it's trying to overcome this sort of sense of being outside of this or appearing within this as this separate entity. But that's the dream, so there is nothing to overcome. So all of the individual's efforts to overcome separation are all happening as part of a dream. So of course it's just not getting anywhere, and it's not actually going somewhere, because it actually isn't there in the first place. An next part to that. So my neighbor that I saw 20 minutes ago does no longer exist until the neighbor comes back to this. Well, nothing really exists, only an appearance. It's only a play of energy, just boundless energy. So your neighbor is just energy appearing as your neighbor. Oh, there's someone trying to get in. So in that sense, you've never met your neighbor. You're welcome. I wouldn't tell him that though. So who is having the dream? No one is having a dream. The dream is that there is a dream. The dream isn't happening at all, not on any level, not at all. So it's not, so when the dream stops happening, it's not as if there is a sort of a looking back and oh, wasn't that dream very weird? Oh, that dream when I was a person or being an individual, or wasn't that whole dream of seeking, wasn't that weird? No, it just wasn't happening. It just wasn't happening. There may have been a memory of seeking, but the individual was just never there, not even materializing as this sort of dream-like essence or something like that. No, it's just the individual is just isn't real. It's completely dreamt in the sense that it never happens. When the dream is over, it never happened. Another question, comment in the chat. Why does one body feel pain if it stubs its toe, but another body that didn't stub its toe doesn't feel the pain if there is no one in either body? Well, there's no one, as you say, there is no one in each body which is feeling the pain. There's a body that may feel pain. There's an apparent body there that may feel pain that this body doesn't feel. But the separation isn't that there is an appearance of a body here and an apparent body apparently over there. The separation, the sense of the separation is that there is someone or something in the body which is experiencing the pain as a reality of pain. The body seems to have a sense of itself. For example, this body doesn't seem to bump into walls or fall down every staircase that comes across. It can do things like drive a car or catch a ball. The body seems to just sort of, so in that sense, the body appears to have an autonomy, but only as an appearance. But there is no one in the body. There is no me. There is no individual in the body, and it's not the body that is the apparent separation for the individual. For the individual, it is its apparent self that is seemingly creating the sense of separation. And then out of that comes the whole sort of dissatisfaction about that experience, that experience seems to be dissatisfying. So of course, then seeking begins, and seeking can take many different forms, of course. But all seeking is the individual attempting to overcome this sense of that it feels disconnected, or that it feels separate. But again, the individual part of the dream for the individual is that overcoming this sort of disconnectedness, or this separateness, that's a better word, the individual imagines that the solution to that is to become connected, or more connected. But that's impossible, and it's completely futile, because there is never anything that is disconnected, ever. The whole is never fragmented, it's never divided. It's always this absolute, infinite, edgeless, centerless undividedness, which is just singular, a singular appearance, which is completely empty, but just also absolutely full. Comment in the chat, you talk about bodies and seeking, but then you say there's nothing happening. Yes, so bodies and seeking are nothing, is nothing appearing as bodies, and nothing appearing as seeking. Everything is nothing appearing to happen. It's nothing apparently happening. Taking a drink is nothing apparently happening. Everything is nothing. And bodies and seeking are just an empty appearance. That's the nothing happening. Has no actuality at all. Bodies have no actuality. Seeking has no actuality. It's just what apparently happens. And the next part to that, how can that be grasped? It can't. It's ungraspable. Because there's nothing that could get outside of the wholeness in order to grasp it. It would be like an eye trying to eye its own eyeball.
Hi, Neil.
Hello.
Hi, Neil.
Hello, Freddie. How are you?
Yeah. Yes, good, thank you.
Good.
I actually thought I was getting somewhere by simply relinquishing the I, the me. I know there is no I, no me, but the idea of me is the problem. I realise that. And I wondered if all one had to do was simply relinquish the I, the belief in the separate self.
Well, there's no you to do anything, Freddie.
Yeah, I realise that, yeah. But once this message is seen, surely that is what happens. The belief in me is relinquished.
Well, if there's no me, then of course there's nothing to believe in that sense. Yes, of course. But it's not about getting rid of the belief in the me in the hope that then the sense of the me will then drop. It's that when it's recognized that there is no me, then of course there can't be a belief in me anymore. In the same way, there can't be any thoughts about me or what I'm doing anymore. But it was never, that's the thing. And that's, again, this is where we encounter the paradox in the communication. That was never really going on in the first place either, anyway. The whole kind of sense to be self-reflecting on something, that was never really happening. There was never an individual sort of self-reflecting in that way, or even an individual believing in itself. It was just something that was apparently there until it isn't. And then when it isn't there, it's recognized it never was there. So there is just literally nothing to be done about that.
I keep trying to give up the me.
Well, that's still an effort, isn't it? Yeah. It's a common miscomprehension of the communication is, oh well, Neil is suggesting, or Tony or Jim or whoever is suggesting that one should give up seeking or stop seeking. Well, no, the suggestion is there's already no one to be seeking, and actually if seeking's happening, then that's what's apparently happening. But seeking is wholeness too. Seeking is home appearing as the seeking for itself. Which is another reason why seeking just isn't going anywhere. Seeking is what's perfectly longed for, appearing as the seeking for what's perfectly longed for. Is that okay? There's a question in the chat.
Yeah.
Did you want to ask something else?
No, thanks.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Freddie. Question in the chat then, does being still and silent help to abide in the energy of this message? No, absolutely not. No, it makes no difference. No, because this isn't about a transmission or an energy. The message is energetic, but there's nothing being transmitted in that sense in the message. That could only be the case if there was wholeness happening here and not wholeness happening there, and that by this sharing a message or a communication in some way, that would in some way make what's happening over there, which isn't wholeness, into wholeness. And that's not the case at all. Of course, the message, if we have to call it that, is all there is wholeness already. So nothing helps because it is already. So it makes no difference in that sense whatsoever, what's going on. You could be sitting with earphones in listening to the Sex Pistols or something like that. Makes no difference because it is already. What's revealed in so-called liberation is that everything is already unconditionally free, even if it's appearing as this kind of trapped, contracted sort of sense to be an individual or a separate someone. And as far as the conversation goes, if that's heard, it's heard. If it isn't, it isn't. It's never heard by a someone, though. And another comment there. Absolutely no hope for the individual. There is no individual. So it's not that there's no hope for the individual. There is no individual. That's why it's hopeless. Another question. When there is no more contracted energy in the body is when the me dies. Well, there's no rules to this, but what seems to happen is the whole sort of sense of a me or of a personal identity seems to arise out of a sort of a contractedness, a contracted energy in the body. But that contractedness, it's not, sort of seemingly in the body, but it also, that sort of contractedness also seems to appear in everything else as well. And it does seem that when that contraction melts away, it takes a sense of the whole personal identity with it. But there's no kind of rules around that, or how that should be or should not be, or how that apparent falling away, of course, should happen or not happen. Next question. Does the contraction of a separate self or separate individual still arise sometimes to a small extent for the character Neil? Well, there's no one here who would know if that would be the case or not. Next question. Is there an awareness of the absence of the personal self there? No, of course not. No, because that would be someone being aware of there not being a person. No, of course, which is kind of relates to the last question. No, there just simply is no one. There just simply is no center in that sense. So there's nothing being aware of that in that sense. There's nothing being aware of an absence, because it's just never there. It's just never really there at all. Yeah, there's nothing existing as a sort of an additional awareness which could know anything about what is there or what isn't there. It's unknowing, complete unknowing in that sense. Which is it's complete unknowing in that sense. For the individual, the part of the experience seems to be a knowing I am here and I am having an experience. That seems to be the what happens for the apparent individual. In the end, there is just unknowing. So there is nothing which knows anything about an individual or not. There just is no one. There just is no one. No, there's just no one even really to reflect on there being a someone or not. That whole thing was just an illusion that there was someone in the first place. Next part to that. So what is your continuous experience? Is it peace like in deep sleep? So there is no experience, because the end of the me is the end of the experiencer. So this isn't being experienced. There's no position, no center from which to be experiencing this. There's just everythingness. There's nothingness, everythinging. It's just all of it, which is just indescribable. Yeah, because it's indescribable because it isn't experienced. But that would be the dream for the individual. That would be the dream, that it is something there, having an experience of itself, of life, of catching the bus, of going shopping, whatever the case may be. All of that seems to be what happens for the individual. I am here having an experience of all of that. That is the illusion. And next part to that was, is it peace like in deep sleep? Well, in the same way that no one knows what deep sleep is like because you're not there, in the same way, I can't tell you what this is like because there's no one here. Next question. Hi, Neil. Did you say that what's already happening is what's longed for? Yes, I did. That doesn't seem right to me. Who in their right mind would long for this? Yeah, of course. Many thanks for your something, and then it just cuts off. Yeah. The dream or the illusion is that this is separate, or that there is separation, and that in the separation, the part of that experience for the individual seems to be there is something lost or missing or incomplete or unfulfilled about this, about what's happening. And the suggestion is this is all there is, and it is whole and fulfilled already. Separation is the dream. So yeah, absolutely. And I understand that's not the experience for the apparent individual. For the individual is this isn't good enough. This isn't wholeness. This isn't fulfillment. There is something I need to find. I need to become something. I need to become awakened. I need to become liberated or enlightened or something like that for this to be fulfilled. And no, that's the dream. This is already whole and fulfilled as it appears, even if it's appearing as the worst thing you can imagine. That is absolute wholeness appearing as that. Wholeness isn't describing a state. So this being whole and complete and naturally fulfilled isn't a state. It's not an emotional state. It's just how it apparently is. Whole, complete, nothing lost, nothing missing. However it is seemingly appearing, or however it is seemingly arising. And next question, there is no need for intimacy. Well, who would need intimacy? But intimacy can happen. So there isn't an individual having intimacy with another individual, because an individual would feel that they need intimacy, because again, the experience for the individual is I am a separate someone. Therefore, I need to experience connection. I need to experience deeper relationships. I need to experience intimacy to feel content or to feel fulfilled. No. When there is no one, then there is nothing that is in any way separate or disconnected. So all of it is intimacy. The whole thing is intimacy. And next question, if my son refuses to clean his room after asking him numerous times, is it because he is not the doer, which means my son has no choice whatsoever in cleaning the room? Yeah, I wouldn't tell him that, otherwise he'll never clean his room. Well, I would just simply say that's just what's happening there. It's just a child who doesn't want to clean his room because he can't be bothered. But no, of course, there is no one who can choose to clean a room or not. Next question, is there any kind of union in this? Well, it is already all the divine union, but not because there is something that is separate and then becoming unified. It's that it just never becomes divided. This never becomes separate. This is never lost or missing anything. It's all here. It's all whole. It's all complete. It's needless. It's entirely needless in the sense of something needing to feel unified or connected, because it is just the unified connectedness, not connectedness. It is just the perfect unification already, as in never separate. Next comment. Sometimes confusion appears here. What do you mean by nothing? And could it be another concept? Many thanks. Yes, of course, it could be taken on as a concept. Yeah, yeah. Nothing is also everything. Nothing appears as everything. This is nothing appearing as everything. The microphone is nothing appearing. It's nothing microphoning. This is nothing computer mousing, micing. Yeah, everything is just an appearance of nothing. I think nothing is just the closest word, but nothing being everything doesn't describe this in any way. But I think it's pretty much as close as you can get. Next comment. After the body dies, is there still awareness of anything, or is it total blackout, total void? No idea. Is the answer to that? Who could know? No one dies when the body dies, because there is no individual existing or living in the body already. So there is no death. There is no death of the person. And next comment, it is a gift which has been never lost. Yes, it's a gift that's never been taken away. So it's a gift that can never be given, of course. Yeah. Because it's never been taken away. It's never been lost. Could it be a concept over here too, or not over there? Could it be a concept over here too, or not over there? I don't understand what that is. If you want to come on and ask. A concept for me? Well, there's no one here. I'm still not understanding. What could what be a concept? Nothing. Could nothing be a concept? Well, when we're talking about this as nothing being everything, then yes, we're just talking a concept, of course. Yeah. Yeah. But it's meant as a report or as a description. But again, calling this nothing doesn't describe what this is, because it's completely unknowable, ungraspable. Thanks, it's quite clear. Okay, all right, thank you. Who could hold a concept? No one.
So, although we're talking about concepts, there isn't anyone to hold a concept.
No, of course not. No, concepts are just appearing. Concepts in the conversation. That's just what's apparently happening. That's just what's appearing to happen. Yeah. it's living without any gain or loss. Actually, it's far worse than that. It's that there is no one living. There's no individual living. There is no person living or having a life or living. There's just life, aliveness apparently happening. For the individual, it's like there's life and then me with my life inside life. That's the dream. There's like a little bubble of me and my life inside life. No, there's just life, just aliveness, just life apparently happening. Oh, there's a few there now. Is there scripts written for each individual? I'm not sure what you mean. What, by God? No, of course not. I don't know if that's what you mean. I'm not being funny. I'm not sure what you mean by are there scripts written for each individual. Do you mean everything's preordained or pre-written by some sort of cosmic force like karma or something? No, those are all just ideas that the individual comes up with as a way to try and make sense of its apparent existence, because it needs to know, it needs to understand what it is, why it is, and where it's going. And all that whole time it's doing all of that, it's not really there at all, of course. Next question. If Elon Musk will hear this message, he will argue he achieved his goals. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But of course, every individual would say that they've achieved their goals. Of course they would. Next comment. Why would no one being here be worse? There's no suggestion that it is better or worse for there to be no one here or not. There's no suggestion even that that being an individual is worse. No, that's what apparently happens too. So if this is appearing as the sense to be an individual who is seeking and looking for something or looking for enlightenment, then that is perfectly whole. If it's appearing as apparently there being no one and there is no seeking, there is no dream, there is no illusion, then that's perfectly whole. What about evolution? Everything seems to change, grow, or evolve, only as a story. Yeah. An apparent story of change or grow or evolve. Yeah. There isn't very much that can be said about this. No. Nope. No, no. No, we're talking around it. We're in the conversation. We're never actually talking about what's being pointed to or what's being shared, of course. We're just sort of talking around it, really. But the conversation can sort of, in some way, unravel some miscomprehensions and some misunderstandings about seeking and about duality, the nature of sort of duality, that kind of thing. But none of that helps the seeker to get to where they feel they want to be, or for there to be a falling away or something like that, because of course the whole thing is illusory. Is it true that there is no one here to experience happiness, sadness, or any other emotion, but they just happen without anyone experiencing them? Yeah, okay, but I wouldn't call that a truth. There's nothing, there's not a sort of a truth or a false about it necessarily. It just apparently happens that there is no individual actually having an experience of happiness, sadness, or other emotions. But emotions can arise or appear to happen, yeah. But they always seem to be problematic for the illusory individual experience. Emotions seem to always be a problematic. Just another thing that the individual feels that it needs to manage or do something with. But no, they're not a problem. They're just what arises, just like weather. Is the natural reality 100% empty space appearing as something real only for the individual? Yeah, so this only appears as being something real, solid, fixed, a subject object a reality for the individual. That seems to be how it is for the individual only. When there is no individual, then no, this is just empty fullness. What do you mean by appearance of evolution? Does it mean the world of appearances of senses, sights, etc. does happen even as an illusion? No, the only illusion is that there is an individual or an I am who is having an experience of this or of what apparently happens. That's the illusion. Everything else is just an appearance or is just an apparent. We could sit and have a conversation about evolution over a cup of coffee. That would be an appearance. That would be what's apparently happening. That would be this appearing as sitting, having a conversation and a cup of coffee about apparent evolution. That's all that would be. But that is still this, just appearing as that conversation about evolution. So in that sense, it's just a story. Can you say emotions are just energy that are going into freedom? It releases the body. Well, emotions are just energy. Yes, of course. In that sense, everything is energy. Yeah, emotions just energy. Yeah, arising in the form of emotions. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Another comment. Tony once said, "Don't try to understand this message. This suggests that you could deliver the message in a foreign language and it would make no difference." Yes, probably. Yeah. 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 No, there's nothing to understand. No. No. You could say this is a bit of a story, but could say really that the message is energetic. Yeah, it's completely beyond understanding in the sense that it isn't really about understanding. We talked about this quite a bit recently. It isn't about trying to understand what empty fullness means, or trying to understand what nothing being everything means. You can't understand that. The mind can't understand that. That can't be grasped. In the end, of course, there isn't even a message to understand or to grasp. There could only be a message if there was real separation, which there isn't, of course. Oh, thank you. I once heard a story, I would have to check my sources. I've got a feeling it was in one of Richard Sylvester's books. I could be wrong, where I'm pretty sure he talked about doing I think it was him, so don't quote me. He talked about he was doing a talk in a hotel somewhere in Europe, and as he was talking, one of the sort of concierge, one of the porters at the hotel or bar staff or something who was serving the tea and coffee, heard the talk and died. It was just a member of staff who was sort of putting out the teas and coffees. Never heard of non-duality, never heard this message, had no idea even, who Richard was or what they were talking about. I'm pretty sure that was a story or an anecdote in one of his books. And she just heard it and fell away, died. Are you doing any in-person meetings in the near future? I would love to. I have nothing planned at the moment. I'm not a big famous YouTuber, non-duality debonair yet. And I never plan to be either. But yes, that would be nice to do some in-person meetings at some point. Yeah, it would be lovely. If and when I do, then it'll be on the website already, everything.co.uk. We'll see. And if someone wants to invite me, then they can get in touch with me by email, which is also on my website. But yes, that would be fun. Yeah, I'd really like to. In fact, I have had some invitations to go over to America, but I can't afford it. So another time, maybe. When I've opened my non-duality center and I've got 9 Rolls Royces and all of that, maybe I'll do that. I'm just kidding. Okay, you're all sitting and wondering what it is you should be looking for and where to find it and what the hell was this all about and what am I supposed to do with it? And the whole time that's going on, you're sitting in it. You're sitting in it, you're breathing it, you're looking at it, you're tasting it, you're hearing it, you're sensing it. It's everything. What you long for is already everything. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Neil.
Okay, thanks.
Cheers, Neil.
Neil, thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lady.
Goodbye. Bye.
Bye.
Wow.
Bye.